And the answer, of course, was a resounding no. They forgot to ask them the second question, which Didier's research now proves. The second question they forgot to ask them is, do you want to? And of course, they were desperate to travel, they just didn't know that they could. And looking at the numbers that Didier just shared with us, the demand is strong, even willingness to pay is strong. We saw rising gas prices this year, and you know what? We never got to the tipping point where people said they weren't going to drive. They adapted, they just put more people in the cars, and they drove. So it'll be interesting to see if that stays the same way. One of the areas that we haven't talked about today, but we're about to, is sustainability as it applies to luxury travel. And joining us now with a special video presentation is the sustainability editor for the Sunday Times in London, Chris Haslam. Please go to the screen.
Hello, Neem. At the beginning of this month, I wrote a newspaper article calling for the fundamental re-evaluation of the nature of luxury. Luxury travel occupies a position of great responsibility in our world. Its accoutrements, from the private jets to the private yachts, from the fine dining to the even finer surroundings, are the most demonstrative indicators of personal privilege or success. Images of power couples sipping champagne in the first-class cabin, stepping out of the helicopter on the Côte d'Azur, or revelling in high-maintenance isolation epitomise the values to which billions aspire. And this image is out of date. The time when excess, self-indulgence and conspicuous consumption were admirable has gone. And the notion of luxury maintained by the glossy magazines, the advertising industry, the travel trade, has mutated to become an extractive anachronism as manifestly immoral as drink driving. And that too, remember, was once acceptable. In a rapidly warming world where weather patterns could be close to tipping point, where ecosystems and habitats could slip into irrevocable decline, and where hundreds of millions of the world's poorest people will find their homelands uninhabitable, carbon-intensive travel is increasingly difficult to justify. And yet, travel is still a powerful force for good. Tourism is the most effective conduit for the transfer of wealth from the global north to the global south. It provides livelihoods and opportunities for communities with no other means of support. It funds conservation, protecting habitats and wildlife, and it fosters empathy and understanding between cultures and nations. But in many cases, the environmental costs of tourism still vastly outweigh its social and economic benefits, and the five-star sector especially seems unwilling to take its fair share of the burden of change. We all know that greenhouse gas emissions must be cut. A reduction of between 24 and 27 billion tonnes of carbon must be achieved within the next 7 years in order to meet our goal of keeping average temperatures within 1.5 degrees of pre-industrial levels. All the world's promises so far add up to just 4 billion tonnes, leaving the world facing a median warming of 2.4 degrees and a climate disaster. We all know this. But as Greta Thunberg told the UN in 2017, I do not want to believe that, because if you really understood the situation and still kept failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe. We also know that travel has to change before change is forced upon travel. Carrying on as normal in anticipation of the development of carbon removal technologies is like continuing to smoke in the hope of a cure for cancer, and expecting the public to put the climate before their comfort is naive. I mentioned at the start that I wrote an article about this. Well, here's what the readers said. I work hard all year. I see no reason to apologise, or worse, be lectured. Go and annoy someone else. Next, who is this Puritan geek? I like a bit of luxury now and then. Another one. What's the point of grafting away if you can't have a bit of luxury once a year? And finally, my favourite. This was clearly written by someone who can't afford the helicopter. Anger, aggression, irritation, but not one word in refutation of the argument that luxury has to change. The public are fearful of sustainability. Commenters such as those above worry that by choosing the greener, cleaner option, they're ordering the lentils instead of the chocolate cake. And this is a fault of both the media and the industry for promoting sustainability as a necessary compromise rather than as an improved way to travel. To be clear, this is not a socialist manifesto. I'm not suggesting that luxury travel should be outlawed. I'm not saying that the rich should not be able to buy comfort. Rather, that the provision of those comforts somehow leaves the destination in better shape, even fractionally, than it was before the clients arrive. Those clients are unlikely to demand these changes, so it's up to you, the industry, to take away the choice and present a redefined concept of luxury as a fait accompli. Drop the policy of talking to guests on a never say no basis and replace it with one that seeks to challenge established beliefs. Those have already done so, and I'm thinking of companies like Jetwing in Sri Lanka, Attitude in Mauritius and The Long Run in Kenya, have found that when presented with sustainable travel as the only option, guests have quickly discovered that it's not lentils at all. Rather, it's an artisan baked organic chocolate cake made with local ingredients. For the time being, no one is forcing the luxury sector to change. For as long as there is excess, there will be people willing to pay for it. And while ministers are still excited about travel by private jet, they won't begrudge others the right to carbon-heavy self-indulgence. But there's no avoiding the moral imperative. The values espoused by luxury travel go far beyond the hotels, the private jets and the super yachts. And they can no longer be the values to which billions aspire. As in fashion, change percolates from the top in the travel industry. What the rich are doing today, the poor will be doing tomorrow. And while it may be naive to expect the former to start caring about the latter, it will be all our children who inherit the world that we leave behind. So, trim off the excess. It could be Wagyu beef, diesel generators, Jaffa oranges, wasteful buffets, helicopter transfers, jet fresh oysters, petrol-powered jet skis, imported drinks, imported pasta, imported ketchup in tiny glass jars that ends up in landfill, bottled water, aluminium coffee pods, plastic miniatures of shampoo, big TVs that no one's watching, aircon that no one's using, and all the other toxic particles in the haze of excess and waste hanging over luxury hotels that no amount of greenwash can rinse away. Travellers don't know it, but they can live without tiny jars of imported ketchup, and in doing so they may rediscover the riches lost to homogenised international luxury. I leave you with this. A hotelier in Sri Lanka was discussing the justification of importing fruit from South Africa. If I give a guest an apple, he said, it's nothing special. He has them at home. It's just an apple. But if I give him a guava picked from the tree in our garden, then that is a luxury. Thank you very much.